problem. Welcome to Axel's Garage. All right, today we got some EVAP things going on, we think. So I had to research EVAP systems, and they've always been this weird kind of crazy system that nobody fully understands, especially people who aren't mechanics like myself and just do their own wrenching in their driveway, in the street in front of their house, wherever it might be. So what I want to do is, for you guys, I want to just explain EVAP systems in a basic way that could sort of make you understand it and help you with your troubleshooting in the future, and so that you have troubleshooting success. So come into my blackboard. Here we got the big dummy behind the camera, and we got Jeff here, which is a 2005 Chevy Avalanche. So let's go with an EVAP system. So we're going to go with a fuel tank. So this is the fuel tank. Fuel tank. And the fuel tank has a filler, right? A gas cap. Gas cap. Okay. And then the fuel tank has a canister here, and this is I'm going to go CH. That's the charcoal canister for the evaporating system. And then up here you got the engine, and on the engine, mounted on the engine, on the intake is your this is going to be your purge valve. Purge. That's your purge valve. And then you're also going to have, and I'm going to put it over here to make it easy, is another thing, which is your vent. That's your vent valve. Vent valve there.
Is that drawn to scale? Can we get something?
It's not drawn to scale. Go away. Wise asses. So now, these are the components of the system, right? Your purge valve going into your intake on your engine, your vent valve, your charcoal canister, your fuel tank, your gas cap. Now, how your evaporative system works is you have fuel in your fuel tank, and the fuel constantly off-gasses hydrocarbons, vapors, fuel vapors. And those fuel vapors are potentially bad for the environment, so they don't want those fuel vapors out in the environment because we have to be friendly and hug all the trees. So what they have is a system that allows these fuel vapors to be used as fuel in the engine. So you have your gas cap, and you got a little line from your gas cap, and that line, and they got a line that comes out of here, and it goes into this charcoal canister. So what it does is any vapors, when you're fueling your car, so all these vapors in here from the fuel coming down, they go through this and go into the charcoal canister. And then the fuel in your tank, the vapors that come from the fuel in your tank, they go up into the charcoal canister. Now the charcoal canister is filled with charcoal, some kind of charcoal that holds those fuel vapors, and it takes the fuel part, the hydrocarbons, and it holds on to them, and it lets the air that doesn't have hydrocarbons in go to the vent valve. Okay, and the vent valve can take that air now and purge it to the outside. But that air doesn't have the fuel hydrocarbons in it because they stay in here. They hang out in here. It's like a bar, and they hang out in the bar and have a couple cocktails. Now there's a hose that'll go from the vent, from the charcoal canister, and it's going to go all the way up into your purge valve. And that's your evaporative system. So hydrocarbons from here and here go up into the charcoal canister, which is the bar. They hang out and have a couple cocktails. The air left over will go out the vent valve and be vented outside. And then when the hydrocarbons are done drinking, they're going to come through this line. They're going to go into the purge valve, and the purge valve is going to send it into the engine to be burnt along with the fuel, so that you're using that vapor instead of wasting that vapor, which increases efficiency in your engine, miles per gallon, just a little bit, but it does increase efficiency, and it protects the environment. Those hydrocarbons aren't getting out into the environment. That is the basics of how this system works. I can't be any more basic than that. But come in, and this vent valve is normally open. So that's open, normally. And this purge valve is normally closed. Okay, and what that does is that allows the hydrocarbons to come up into the bar and hang out. The air left over gets to be vented, okay? And And this hose doesn't let the hydrocarbons into the engine through the purge valve until the ECM or the PCM, and that's the computer, until the computer tells it to open or that to close. And the computer will do that in two different ways. It's going to tell that to close and this to remain closed when it wants to check the system. And the computer will call for that check depending on engine conditions. It's going to periodically check the system. And what it will do then is the system will pressurize, and in the fuel tank there might be there's going to be a sensor, and there'll be a little sensor in there a pressure sensor, and the pressure sensor will read the pressure of the fuel tank, and if the pressure slowly decreases in the fuel tank, it's going to give you a code for a small leak in your EVAP system, your evaporative system, EVAP. If it loses pressure right away, it's going to give you a code for a large leak. So that's why sometimes if you leave the gas cap off, you'll get a large leak, because now there's a big hole and it loses pressure right away. The computer throws a code for a large leak. If one of these lines has a break in it and it bleeds down pressure slowly over time, it's going to throw a code. This guy's going to see that, throw a code, and it's going to give you a code for a small leak. And that's when you try to find the leak by filling the system potentially with non-combustible smoke, and you see where the smoke comes out, and then you know where your leak is. So that's why a lot of times when you throw an EVAP code or you get a check engine light right after getting gas, you make sure your fuel cap is tight. That's the reason for that. So things like that, you could get a leak in the system that could cause a problem. Now, when you don't have a leak in the system, what are the components that could fail? Well, the pressure sensor could go bad. So when it does its check, it's sending the wrong pressure to the computer. You could get a code for a circuit failure in the pressure sensor, or the pressure sensor itself could go bad. The gas cap, the seal on the gas cap could go bad. So that's an actual component that could go bad, other than a leak in one of the lines. The vent valve, is a valve. It's an electrically controlled valve that will stay open normally and will shut when the computer tells it to shut. That could go bad. That also has a filter in it usually to filter so it doesn't take in or let out any solids. Sometimes the filter could get clogged, which could make this malfunction, and it could actually go bad. The purge valve, which is normally closed, could get stuck closed. It could be stuck open. It could not respond appropriately when it gets the open and close signal. The circuit could go bad on that also, and you could get a code when that breaks or that circuit fails. And then there's the charcoal canister, which is kind of a passive thing. It's filled with charcoal, it's passive. But over time, it could clog, and the charcoal inside could deteriorate and start coming apart, and it doesn't work properly, and that could fail. The charcoal also could break into really small pieces and start to clog the lines, which could give you a system failure as well. So that's as basic and as in layman's terms as I could get it, the evaporative system. And if you take this diagram and my layman's explanation and apply it to what you're seeing in your vehicle, whether it be a small leak or a large leak or a component failure or a circuit failure, it could help you narrow down your troubleshooting. Now, a lot of times on a circuit failure, it might be hard to determine whether the circuit's operating right. You might need to take out a multimeter, and you might be able to tell, because usually these things might have power all the time, and the computer will give it ground when it wants to change whether it's open or closed. And that would be troubleshooting the individual components of the system. And a lot of people don't always have a smoke machine. Maybe you could borrow one. Maybe you do in your home do-it-yourself garage, and you have a smoke machine, and you could smoke out the system if you have a leak code. Could you throw parts at it? Yeah, you could throw parts at it. The problem with throwing parts at it is this is a pretty inexpensive part for the most part, especially on the GM vehicles that I work on. The vent one is a pretty inexpensive part. This one gets a little pricey, around $75 to $100. Gas caps are pretty cheap, $10, $15, $25, $40. You know, pressure sensor, $20. A couple $100, you can replace everything in the system, the hoses, everything. But why throw the money at it? There are some diagnostics that you can do, and Why are we doing this? Well, we do have a potential EVAP problem in one of the vehicles, and we're going to make a video about it. So before we do that, I figured I'd give you the layman's explanation of how an EVAP system works. Hope you enjoyed it. Questions, comments down below, and as always, thanks for watching.